News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
KBNU News Time is 4:03. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by U&I Furniture. Saturday, when Utah State University's football Aggies travel for the fifth time to Boise to appear in a bowl game. As always, the USU Alumni Association will be there to cheer on the team. Saturday morning before the 1:30 kickoff at the famous Idaho Potato Bowl against Georgia State, the Alumni Association will partner with Trivium Life Services to host a winter clothing drive at the All Aggie Tailgate Party. From 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., they will collect used coats, sweaters, scarves, gloves, and hats. The drive will benefit families in need in the Boise area. Trivium is a Boise area business working to help those with chronic mental illness, developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and brain injuries to reach independence through their residential and day rehabilitation services. Kim Larson, executive director of the USU Alumni Association, said the Aggies are pleased to be able to provide a layer of comfort and support to those who need assistance this time of year. Larson said an all-Aggie pep rally will be held Friday evening from 7 to 8 at the Basque Center. Registration is $5 for adults and children for that. KBNU News Time is 4:04. KBNU weather for tonight. Cloudy, hazy, areas of patchy fog overnight, low around 20. And then cloudy to start the day, some hazy sunshine during the afternoon, and the high temperature around 40 degrees. Right now we have 40 here at KBNU. Hey, if you have that stuffy winter smell, give John at the Duct Hunter a call. Your air ducts could be holding on to dust and other surprises. Call 435-770-4813.
Thank you. U&I Furniture wants to say thank you to all of their friends and customers. U&I Furniture is grateful to be a family business, now in their fifth generation. For over 90 years, they've always offered a good product at a good price. And that's why they say you'll always find a better buy at U&I. Stop by and see them this holiday season with lots of store-wide specials and great bargains. Purchase any sofa or sectional, and U&I says thank you with $100 off on any chair to go with it. U&I Furniture in downtown Logan.
KBNU News Time is 4:05. In the Logan City School District, they are known as the Two Veronicas that help keep the district's Family Resource Center going. The center is designed to provide services to homeless, migrant, and families in need in the school district. On KBNU's For the People program last week, Logan City School District Superintendent Frank Schofield had high praise for the two women. They were guests along with Schofield on the program. Veronica Castro said they have had support from other districts in the state, and they've learned things from their programs.
Of course, the needs for our district are a little bit different, and so it's been really good to speak with the families, ask what they need, work with our superintendent as well, and really see how we can best serve these families. Laundry was kind of a big resource that was really needed in our school district, as well as providing some food. The food pantry we do have available. However, in the summer, students were able to come and plant in the community garden in the back and be able to take some of those things home with them.
Veronica Cruz said they have students in 10 different language groups who they try to help in the district.
And we help everybody, all the students, and when we try and give you support to the student and say this is really important, you come every single day to the school. It's really important you stay here, because in the future you have a better life.
Cruz said they are happy to accept donations from the community. Right now, they have a critical need for jackets and coats, actually everything for the winter, such as hats and gloves as well. You can call 435-755-2300, extension 1035. And St. George police are actively searching for an armed and dangerous suspect in connection with a reported carjacking and jewelry store robbery. According to police, the St. George 911 Communications Center received a carjacking report at about 5:45 Monday afternoon. They said that a male armed with a gun successfully took a vehicle and fled the area. The suspect allegedly robbed a jewelry store, crashed the stolen vehicle on I-15, and then fled on foot. The crash forced all lanes of southbound I-15 to be closed for a short period of time. The area surrounding 1000 East and St. George Boulevard was flooded with police presence in an effort to locate the suspect. The suspect is described as a Hispanic male wearing all black clothing. KBNU News Time is 4:08. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Local news and the best talk. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Here's what some of our patients have to say about how Red River has changed their lives.
So before I started at Red River, I was having a lot of stomach pain. I was overweight, severe anxiety. I had been to multiple doctors. We had done tests and no one could find anything that was wrong. And then a friend mentioned Red River and I went and saw him, and it has changed my whole life. I'm sleeping through the night. I have energy for my kids. I've lost 30 pounds. No more stomach pains. I just feel really good.
Our goal is to focus on imbalances that are driving your condition or symptoms, not just give you Band-Aid answers. So when a patient comes to our office, we'll sit down with them extensively and go over their blood work to find out the underlying imbalances driving their symptoms.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER. with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
It's winter, and the last thing you're thinking about is yard work. But did you know now is actually the best time to trim your trees? Hey, it's Chelsea with Whole Tree Care, and I'm not suggesting you get out there and do it. Call us. Our guys climb trees year-round. And now that leaves are gone, visibility is perfect for trimming. Plus, your trees are dormant, so it's less stressful on your trees. Call 760-6587. If you have any overgrown trees, call before heavy snow causes damage. Whole Tree Care. That's HULL Tree Care. 760-6587.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cash Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have two guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Tuesday, December 19th. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well. And I was surprised around 2 o'clock today to learn that it was Tuesday. You ever have one of those days where it's just Wednesday or some other day all day long?
It it had a Wednesday feel.
Yeah,
early on.
I was planning all day long like it was Wednesday. Just I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And then at a certain point around 2 o'clock, I'm like, what am I doing? It's Tuesday, which is good because if I'd forgotten that it was Tuesday, I would have forgotten that we had back-to-back special guests here on the show today for what will be our last of 2023, at least, installments of both our monthly visit with our good friend Shellie Giddings, former Cache County GOP chair, all-around arts supporter, and Politico here in Utah, providing a different perspective than just my own rambling on. Once a month she joins us here. And then usually do this on Wednesdays. We had to postpone it earlier this month because of a scheduling conflict. Cache County Executive David Zook will be with us in hour 2 for our last county hour of 2023. So if you have questions or comments, either hour, 753 5868. And Shellie, hi. Thank you. Thank you for making the time to come down. I love these episodes where you get to come in and sit, because we don't really have an agenda. We don't set a schedule necessarily of things we're going to talk about, just what's in the news, everything going on. But I wanted to ask you, right out of the gate, if you are ready to make any predictions as far as the Republican nomination for president. Any predictions yet?
Oh, goodness.
How do you think that's going to go?
Oh.
I can't get a feel for this one.
I can't either.
I know what the pundits are saying, but I don't know if I agree with them.
Right. I'm kind of right there with you.
Nikki Haley is... I feel like she's kind of knocking it out of the park, at least on a somewhat regular basis.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time believing that's not going to have an impact in 2024.
I think it's absolutely going to have an impact. Absolutely. And everybody is still in for Trump. Not everybody, but a lot of people are still in for Trump.
Sure. Yeah, he's got a lot of support.
He does. And I loved him as a president, honestly. I thought he was great. My personal economy sure was better when he was president. I don't know about you. But I don't want him to get the nomination and then be so polarizing that we get Biden again.
Sure.
It's
interesting when you think about presidential elections, when you think of the long-term, because a lot of times there is a response to a response to a response, and it has a tendency to ping pong like that. And it was. You can't ignore. I know Trump supporters don't like to talk about this, but you can't ignore the fact that he got only one term. He wasn't reelected.
Yeah.
And so you have to factor that in. I really think you have to factor in, too, that all the polling we've seen so far is 2023.
Yeah.
I look back on the 2008 Democratic nomination, and I think I saw an article on this. At this time, in the 2008 Democratic nomination, Obama was a who? No one was talking about him. Mm-hmm. John Edwards was the front runner. Mm-hmm. And by March, of course, that was a completely different field.
Yeah.
And Edwards' campaign melted down because it turns out he was a horrible person. And Obama and Hillary were at that point taking shots at each other. And I didn't think he would beat her, and then he got the nomination, and so it's so up in the air. But Nikki Haley just maybe I'm putting my own maybe this is my own personal preference coming through, but I feel like people are kind of hungry for someone like her, and she's the way she's talking about things.
Yeah.
She's very wonky.
Yeah.
But she's also feisty. She's not boring like most wonky people are.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like anyway, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Well, I have a friend who moved from California to South Carolina when she was governor. They loved her as governor.
Yeah, she was very popular.
And then when she was at the UN.
And that's a key state for the Electoral College.
Right. And then when she went to the UN, from everything I've ever read or heard, she did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So, I'm a Nikki Haley fan.
She has name recognition. In the nomination contest, everyone knows who she is on the Republican side. Everyone who would vote in a caucus or a primary would know who she is. And I know there are other candidates that are getting their 15 minutes here and there. And like I say, all the pundits are still saying this comes down to a Trump v. DeSantis kind of thing, but the DeSantis campaign seems to have floundered a bit, fundraising-wise. Anyway, it's just been – it's one of the weirdest because I don't know that if someone forced me to make a wager at this point, I don't know that I could.
Right. No, I'm right there with you. It's a hard one this time.
That is – and I know it's going to be an interesting general election too. It's the same thing. We're a long ways out. But Biden is down almost 4 right now from where he was in 2020, from when he was in 2019 ahead of the I'm just going to go back home. Yeah, December of 2019, He's about 4 points behind where he was then, and everybody then was saying, "Oh, he doesn't have the support to be the nominee because he's down so much in the polls." And yet, so anyway, it's just going to be weird. But
it's going to be interesting to see what Utah does on caucus night for the presidential preference. Vote.
How do you feel about that? Were you a supporter? I know some people were very angry. There's not going to be a traditional. Everybody wants to go to that convention and have their 15 minutes and make their speeches, but they said basically, look, we know how this is going to play out. Everybody show up and cast your preference, and
I like it because it brings more people to caucus.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. We need more regular people to come to caucus and to volunteer to be delegates and precinct officers.
And this is everything you need to say to people, well, you better show up, right?
Yep.
Because otherwise you don't get to cast a ballot in the presidential nomination.
Right. And I wish we were talking more about caucus right now. The county party, for some reason, is not really talking about it too much.
Yeah.
And they should be. They're selling signs for support of Israel, which, okay, but let's talk about caucus.
Yeah, there's some local stuff that's going to happen, right?
Yeah. I don't understand what's going on there, but I don't make the decisions anymore. So.
I thought that was strange as well. I mean, not strange they're selling those signs, but that they're doing that and not the local stuff because it's coming up sooner than you think. Filing deadline is actually the filing period for candidacy this year ends at the end of the first week of January.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's right around the corner that all of this really starts. And what a year too for the county level. What races there are, but also party building because you have the Senate race, United States Senate race. Mm-hmm. We had Brad Wilson on yesterday, and he's a very forgiving guy. It was a mess. And we got him on anyway, just a little shorter than we'd planned, and he was so gracious about it. And but he's in this Senate race, and is currently I would say it's fair to say he's the front runner in this race. Rumors that Representative John Curtis, who said no, might change his mind, but I think they're just rumors. You've got the gubernatorial race, which is going to get a lot of attention too. And so does that, from your experience as county party chair for several years, does that make it easier? Does that give you some energy to say to people, hey, come and get involved, show up on caucus night?
It's a good for advertising. That doesn't mean we get more people out.
Really?
No.
It's not a guarantee, huh?
I've had people are apathetic. I believe we really, really need to have some very in-depth, serious education about why we have caucus, why it's important. I think more people would participate if they knew that.
Yeah.
And we don't seem to do it. Once we have our delegates, we'll bring them in and we'll do some training and we'll tell them this is what they're supposed to do, and that's it. But I think beforehand, so that we can get more people out.
Yeah.
Because right now, we're getting the very zealous people who, they want to participate, which is great.
Sure.
But, they've been doing it for years and years, and they, I don't know how to say this nicely, but...
we don't have to be nice here.
Well, they don't like it when other people get involved. They want to be the ones involved because they want to have all the control, basically.
Yeah.
We have a lot of those people.
That's a good point.
And that's why we have the, certain elected officials that we have because of delegates who want to be in charge, delegates who aren't doing their homework and vetting.
Which is their one job, really.
Their one job.
Not just one, but that's their most important job during nomination contests.
Yes.
That I see what you're saying, and that's definitely not exclusive to the Utah Republican Party,
no, right?
Because Democrats have an issue with that too. I went to a Democratic convention a long time ago to cover it, and saw the same thing where you had these people that had been delegates for years kind of acting like, don't you know who I am? And the party was trying to get new, younger people in. And it was interesting to see that fight. But it's here's what I always say to people, all my friends who are fans of the caucus convention system, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, I always say if you like the caucus convention system, you need to get involved and help build it up because where it's at right now, and you only have to look at media coverage to see this, but go, pick through some of the articles of the Deseret News and Salt Lake Tribune about these statewide campaigns, the gubernatorial race, the U.S. Senate race. They're not even mentioning the caucus system. They're already talking about the June primary, almost as if the caucus convention system does not exist, and that is going to be the death of it, I predict. Well, if it doesn't become more relevant in choosing candidates.
Absolutely. And the ability to gather signatures to be on the ballot is ruining caucus. However, the last couple of years have shown me why we have SB 54.
That alternate route.
People are not, the ability that, you can go and collect signatures and you don't have to go through convention. And I've seen it because people aren't, they're not trusting the delegates to do their jobs.
Yeah. And sometimes with good reason.
Well, we had a special election recently and I sat there watching and I talked to people and so many people were basing everything on the speech they heard right there that night.
That one speech.
That's not how you do it.
No.
And so that's why we ended up getting the signature path, right? Because people aren't trusting the delegates.
Yeah. Same thing happened, in a special election. When Representative John Curtis it was first elected, the delegates in that specific special election nominated a kind of a unknown, hadn't been in the legislature for years, but kind of political gadfly, Chris Herod. They nominated Herod, and rank and file registered Republican voters hated him in the primary, absolutely hated him, and John Curtis won. And the party, I've heard, since then has had a hard time party building in District 3 because of that, because the delegates went for someone that ended up not being very popular outside of the convention. So I think that, reinforces for people subconsciously, maybe even, that the caucus convention system is just this archaic thing that a bunch of weirdos go do on a Saturday, and you don't even need to pay attention to it. And you see that playing out in the reporting, the media.
But here's the thing. Without the caucus convention system, Senator Lee is not coming to Cache County to talk to people.
Oh, sure. Because why?
Right, he doesn't need to.
Exactly.
But we have our elected officials, the governor, all the AG, they all have to come up here and talk to people because they need their votes.
Yeah, I forgot we'll have that race this year too.
Yeah.
That's a good point, actually, that AG race. That's an excellent point. Without the caucus convention system, Derek Brown, and I don't mean this as any slight against Derek. He is a great guy. I'm glad he filed to run. I think the office, obviously if more jump in, there may be choices for people that would change opinions. But right now, I think he would be a great guy to clean up what appears to be a 3 times over repeated mess in that office. And he knows everyone who already works there, so he can. But he was popular as former party chair, I know. Yes. So I love that. But he has zero incentive to spend a lot of time in Cache County during the election next year because he's running a statewide race, and most of the votes are going to be along the Wasatch Front, Salt Lake County, Utah County. So he'd spend most of his time in Salt Lake and Utah County. Unless there's a caucus system that sort of forces him to get out and talk to local delegates.
Exactly.
So that's an excellent point because otherwise I don't think here in Cache Valley we would see them very often.
Exactly. Well, and can I I need to put a little plug in for Derek Brown.
Actually, Gary Herbert's a good example, really quick, before we get to Derek, because that's a race I really think we should spend a lot of time on. It's going to be fascinating. But Governor Herbert, And again, not meaning this is a slight against Governor Herbert, but he was pretty absent in Cache County because Senate Bill 54 didn't exist. And by the time it did exist, he had solidified himself as a popular governor enough.
Yeah.
And Governor Herbert came here very seldomly. In all of the years he was governor, when he campaigned for re-election, he would make maybe 1-2 visits a cycle to Cache County. Cox, on the other hand, spent more time here because he had to, because Senate Bill 54 was in place, and he had to get out and try and meet delegates ahead of that convention that year.
Well, however, having said that, and I am sorry about the coughing.
That's okay. Same thing's happening to me. I think it's the air quality.
Oh, I don't know. But Governor Herbert came to all of our Lincoln Day dinners. Governor Cox has not been to any.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So there's that. But
that's
Derek
a good way to make delegates mad.
Right?
That seems short-sighted of Governor Cox.
Yes.
Especially when the state auditor makes it to them all.
Right?
Has John Dougal missed one in years?
I don't think so. Now, Lieutenant Governor Henderson came last year.
Oh, that's right.
She came, and that was nice to have her. But Derek Brown, I want to get back to Derek Brown for a second because I love Derek. When he became the state party chair, he called every county chair and vice chair to talk to them, to ask them their opinions and what they thought, how he could help them, what they thought that the party could be doing better.
Really?
It was amazing. Yes.
How interesting.
I was very impressed by that.
That is very cool. If you don't mind, let's talk more about that, because this is a race that is kind of coming in late and it hasn't grabbed everybody's attention. But for those who don't know, current Attorney General Sean Reyes has said he will not seek re-election, kind of bogged down in the Tim Ballard Operation Underground Railroad scandal. And he says he'll serve out his final year next year, will not seek re-election. So this is technically an open race. And the only candidate to file so far, he filed just last week. Actually, he hasn't filed yet. He'll file in January. But the only candidate to announce so far that he's running for the office is former Republican Party Chairman Derek Brown. He joined us on the show last week. You can hear that interview if you want via our podcast. But Shellie Giddings, our guest here in the studio, former Cache County Republican Party Chair. And we'll talk about this AG race and more. If you'd like to join us, 753-5868. We'll be back right after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:30, and this look at the news is brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. A trade group that represents TikTok and other major tech companies has sued Utah over its first-in-the-nation laws requiring children to get parental consent to use social media apps. Two laws signed in March by Republican Governor Spencer Cox prohibit minors from using social media between the hours of 10:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. unless authorized by a parent. It also requires age verification to open or maintain a social media account in the state. The restrictions take effect March 1st, 2024. The Net Choice Trade Group argues Utah's regulations unconstitutionally restrict access to public comment and compromise data security. An Idaho judge says he will not reject the grand jury indictment of a man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students last year. Brian Koberger is charged with 4 counts of murder in connection with the stabbing deaths at a rental home near the university campus in Moscow, Idaho. Earlier this year, Koberger's defense attorneys filed motions asking the judge to throw out the indictment. They alleged the prosecution withheld evidence from grand jurors and that there was not enough evidence to justify the indictment. Second District Judge John Judge rejected those arguments after reviewing the grand jury transcripts. Judge's decision was issued Friday and uploaded to the court's website on Monday. And Colin Sexton and Talon Horton Tucker scored 27 points apiece to lead the Utah Jazz to a 125-108 victory over the Brooklyn Nets Monday night at the Delta Center. Sexton had his fifth straight 20-point game to help Utah win for the third time in 4 games. Horton Tucker also had a team-high 6 assists. Lauri Markkanen added 20 points and 10 rebounds. Walker Kessler tallied 14 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 blocks. KBNU News Time is 4:33.
Is your family visiting for the holidays, or are they already here? Well, they have laundry to do using your machines, and it'll take away hours from your family time. We'll send them to Mount Logan Laundry with the large 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers that dry 30% faster. They'll find clean, comfortable environment with free Wi-Fi internet and drop-off service, and they'll be back in no time. Recommend Mount Logan Laundry. They're at 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry, the cleanest spot in town.
This is a special report from ABC News. Colorado disqualifies Trump. I'm Daria Albinger. The Colorado Supreme Court has ruled that former President Trump is not eligible to be on the state's 2024 presidential primary ballot. More from ABC's Andy Field in Washington.
This case will likely land in the U.S. Supreme Court after one Colorado court said Donald Trump was eligible to be on the ballot. Now, the state Supreme Court says the Constitution's insurrection clause disqualifies him. That lower court had ruled that part of the 14th Amendment did not explicitly list a president as someone whose participation in an insurrection would bar them from re-election. But for now, without a higher court overturning this, Donald Trump cannot be on Colorado's presidential ballot.
There have been unsuccessful attempts in other states to use the 14th Amendment to keep Mr. Trump off the ballot. The 4-3 decision is the first time in history the clause has been used for this reason. This is ABC News.
KBNU News Time is 4:34. The weather forecast for tonight, mostly cloudy skies is the forecast, and haze through the night, patchy fog after midnight, low near 20. Cloudy in the morning, then becoming partly sunny. Patchy fog in the morning, haze through the day tomorrow, high around 40. Partly cloudy, hazy conditions on Thursday, around 40 degrees. It's been to 44. It's 39 right now at KBNU. KBNU weather brought to you by U&I Furniture. Big assortment of dining tables they recently picked up from name brand manufacturers. Some with benches and swivel stools, small tables to big tables for family gatherings. Always a better buy at U&I. U&I Furniture, downtown Logan, 28 West, 1st North. You can always get more news at CashValleyDaily.com. Let's get this business update now, brought to you by Edward Jones.
I'm Daria Albinger, ABC News. Another strong day for stocks. Wall Street Now is coming up.
Google has agreed to pay $700 million and make other concessions to settle allegations it stifled competition against its Android app store. California Attorney General Rob Bonta.
Preventing other app stores from being preloaded on Android devices. That means buying off companies who may have launched rival app stores to Google Play Store and creating technological barriers to deter consumers from directly downloading apps to their devices.
The governor of Maine has declared a state of emergency after severe storms caused flooding and left hundreds of thousands without power. You're listening to ABC News. Okay, perfect.
Grant. Happy holidays from the entire team at Adams Wealth Advisors. As we celebrate the joy of this season, it's also time to plan for a financially sound future. Wondering about tax strategies or required investment distributions? Adams Wealth Advisors has the answers. The Adams Wealth team is here to guide you through any complexities and ensure a prosperous new year. Happy holidays from Adams Wealth Advisors, where achieving your financial goals is their mission. Call today to schedule an appointment, 752-1702, or search Adams Wealth Advisors online.
Al Lewis here. Sore knees bothered me for a long time, and Dr. Keith Nelson had some help, but he kept telling me about knee replacement. Well, finally, I got both of them replaced, and no more pain there, and the rest of my body feels better, too. Dr. Nelson explained it all. He did a great job in the surgery, stayed with me throughout with the rehab, and just made my whole life better. I recommend Dr. Keith Nelson, my doctor and my friend, for your aching knees. It's drkeithnelsonortho.com. drkeithnelsonortho.com to get a hold of him.
Bank of Utah wants to give a heartfelt thank you to all who showed their support of their 11th annual Warm Bodies, Warm Souls clothing drive. Thanks to you and your donations, they were able to collect and deliver over 300 bags and barrels of warm clothes for people in need at 12 charities across Utah, including Cache Community Food Pantry in Logan. Thank you again for your help of the Bank of Utah Warm Bodies, Warm Souls clothing drive. Together, we are Utah. Find out more at bankofutah.com. Member FDIC, NMLS number 422914.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Our good friend Shellie Giddings here in the studio with us. She is the former Cache County Republican Party chair, but once a month she steps into the studio with us here to just opine on the news and the headlines from a different perspective, just trying to shake things up because sometimes I get sick of hearing my own self-talk, and there's so much going on. 2024 in Utah, I think a lot of people thought this was going to be kind of a sleepy year in Utah, just a presidential election and maybe a few, really heated legislative races, maybe in parts of the state. But suddenly we get that, but also we're going to have. I predicted Mitt Romney would run again and just walk away with it, and he surprised me. He said he's not going to run again. I never would have predicted Sean Reyes not running for re-election because I still say, despite the Tim Ballard scandal and him being kind of sucked into that a little bit, I still say it was his race to lose. Mm-hmm. He would have won. Mm-hmm. So I'm surprised that he chose not to run for re-election. And, of course, the rumor mill around that is now, something else is coming. That's why he didn't run. No, I honestly, I'm not trying to say, look how cool I am. But I had a conversation with Mr. Reyes, with Attorney General Reyes, and I think he is done with politics. Yeah. I think he decided, this. I think he feels that he will be vindicated in the public eye and everything as all the details of the Tim Ballard scandal come out. He's confident in that, but he just is worn down by how politics can be nasty.
Well, and I think he's got young kids.
Yeah, that's a good point, too.
So you have to think about them.
I want to see some of their growing up a little bit.
Well, yeah, and maybe not have them take any brunt of anything that he might come his way, you know?
That's a good point.
No, Sean Reyes came up to our county fair booth, oh gosh, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
I remember that, and hung out all night.
He hung out. He was out there, talking to the people. He's very personable, very friendly. He would walk down a little ways and grab people and bring them back and have conversations. Yeah, he was really fun.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. And that was, our conversation. I ran into him actually, and I said, "Do you want to come on the show and defend yourself?" And he said, "No." He said, "I really don't." He said, "I don't. I feel like the more I stir, the worse it gets." Talked with his staff about having him on as well because I felt like he deserved to be able to, in his own words, say, "Look, here's where I'm coming from." Mm-hmm. But even his staff told me, no, he's just he's done. He's a little angry about the process. He's never been a huge fan of statewide media for how they've handled some things. Mm-hmm. And I get it. I saw an interview with Fox 13's Adam Herberts that was really confrontational. But Brian Schott in the Salt Lake Tribune has a famous phrase that I think is one of the smartest things I've ever heard a journalist say. He says, "Journalists are like dogs. If you don't run, we won't chase you." And I think I think that's what's happening a bit with the Attorney General's office is that there was a little bit of running, mostly Tim Ballard's, but still, and so they have decided there's a story, and maybe there is, but anyway, either way, we end up with this race. Well, I'm sure. Well, maybe not sure, but likely we'll have others jump in.
Yeah.
But Derek Brown, former Republican Party chair, state Republican Party chair, Derek Brown, has announced his intentions. He joined us on the show last week, and I wanted to ask you about this, Shellie, because he said, I jokingly said, look, I've just through doing this show, but also working on some, over the years, I was invited to work on a work group that was dealing with social media policy for state agencies. And the question that I was specifically brought in with a group of others to help answer was, what should the rule be on blocking or banning people? And they showed me this individual who had basically been stalking the governor, the attorney general, and several other people on their Facebook pages. And it was mean. It was at times revealing personal information that somehow this person knew about them. It was there was obviously an agenda. They were hijacking other conversations about other things just to get it back to their hate for these individuals. And obviously they wanted to block this person, but at the same time, a Facebook page for Sean Reyes is a personal page. A Facebook page for the Utah Attorney General is a public page. Yeah. And they didn't feel like they could block him. And so we were working out, like, well, okay, what should be the rules here? I don't know what they decided to do with that in the end, but I learned through that process that the Attorney General's staff, and many of them go back all the way to Mark Shurtleff. They're well respected. The office is well respected. Derek, I think, could take that and run with it in a way that would finally get us past some of the taint around the office.
I agree. I wouldn't go up against Derek Brown.
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
I tell you, there is nobody that's going to know how to fundraise better than him.
Right.
Because he dug the party out of a near bankruptcy.
He did. Yeah, I think I'll be surprised if he gets some challengers. Formidable challengers.
Yeah.
There might be
serious.
some, kind of, you always get those.
Yeah.
Fringe people or whatever, but
You're so much nicer than me.
Well, not really. If you only knew, Jason. If you only knew.
Oh, I've begged for years. I want someone to write a tell-all book about politics in Utah because it is just, But no, I agree. I think that Derek Brown is probably going to scare off his own being a powerhouse in Utah politics is probably going to scare off serious.
Yeah.
And I think there were a couple of lawmakers when he announced, they were like, oh. I think there were a few in the Utah Senate that thought, oh, maybe this is my time, and then Derek said, no, I'm gonna shoot for it, and they've kept their mouth shut so far. But
yep.
We'll know in a couple of weeks.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Do you when it comes to, so you've been involved with the Republican Party for a long time. What do you think about the efforts, statewide party efforts, to kind of draw in a younger crowd? That's a tough one, right?
It's a tough one. I think they're doing better. I think pre-Robert Axon, so when Carson Jorgensen was the state party chair, and his whole the four of those leaders, so Carson and who was the vice chair, Jordan Hess.
Oh, that's right.
And then their treasurer and secretary, they were all under 30 years old or 35 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I knew Carson was young, but
all of them
I didn't know
were
that.
young. And I think that helped. I think right now you have Robert Axon as the state party chair. And the vice chair's Kim Coleman. She's not young. I mean,
sure.
Sorry, Kim, she's not old, but again, their treasurer and secretary, I think, are also young. So they're trying. It's hard because, well, let me tell you something about, I think we have a whole generation of young Republicans who have been taught in school about climate change, and they believe that it's a dire situation, even if most Republicans don't. These young Republicans do. And so we're losing them on topics like that, which actually Congressman John Curtis, I don't know if he started the Conservative Climate Caucus in D.C.
Yeah.
It's the biggest caucus in the House.
That's interesting to watch because everyone laughed at first. And he said, go ahead and laugh.
Yeah.
And he has turned that into the biggest caucus.
Yeah.
And they're already influencing legislation.
Right. Yes. And at first, I laughed too because I thought, we're Republicans. We don't believe in climate change. And then I learned more about it, and I thought, he's correct because he says that we need to have a seat at that table because if conservatives don't have a seat at the table, then we get all of these crazy climate policies that we're getting, and we have no say in them. So it really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
and I think that's appealing to the younger generation.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to see polling because what tops, the under 30 crowd's priorities list is very different than what political parties specifically have been butting heads over the last several years. And but yeah, what a weird needle to thread because you have Utah Democrats struggle with this too. You have this need to invite and embrace and entice into the system back to thinking about the caucus and things like that. Younger people in their 20s and 30s, and then you have here in Utah a population. Generally, at least, the politically active population. I'm talking people who do more than just vote every go round. People that get involved, people that volunteer with campaigns, people that become delegates. They tend to be, the 45 and older crowd, and so you have this tension that I think is healthy, but at the same time, obviously, you need to keep drawing in younger people, or you're going to run into a problem one day.
Yes,
and that's been interesting to watch the parties try to thread that needle.
Yep.
And,
no, I agree.
Utah Democrats, by the way, have not. I thought it would be easy for them. They've had a tough time. I talked with their party chair, state party chair, and she said one of the issues they're having is young people who lean to the left, really lean to the left, and Utah Democrats are out of necessity have to be just barely center left, or they're not winning any races, even in Salt Lake County.
Right.
And that's been a challenge for them. So, yeah. Gen Z just kind of throwing a wrench in everything, but they're talented, though. We got to give them that.
This is true. This is true.
753-5868. This is interesting. A bit of breaking news here. I'm sure we'll hear more about this from ABC at the top of the hour. But ABC News reporting that the Colorado Supreme Court has disqualified former President Donald Trump from the state's 2024 ballot. I did not think that would happen. Obviously, they're going to challenge this in court, but that's a surprising ruling. And so, we'll see if we can find some news on this, and maybe we could wrap up talking about that. But I'm shocked. We'll be back right after this.
The gift department at S.E. Needham Jewelers has something wonderful for the special people on your Christmas list. When you want a cherished keepsake that will be kept for generations, S.E. Needham's is the place. Choose visually stunning Yadro figurines, the gorgeous tone of European music boxes, elegant home decor, and much more. In a world where many gifts are eventually broken, outdated, and thrown away, choose a gift with lasting meaning. For the people and occasions that matter most, visit S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock.
The Above and Beyond Salute.
This is Curtis Kazare.
Curtis, I'm calling to award you with the Above and Beyond Salute this morning after you saved that 16-year-old boy's life on Monday at Skyview High School. I was wondering if you could just tell me what it was like.
It was an athlete of mine that his heart stopped, and friends came to get me, and so I was just in the position to do the training that I've learned, the skill that I've learned.
Curtis, well, I have a $40 gift card for you to Firehouse Subs as a way of saying thank you.
Well, that's awesome. I love Firehouse Subs.
The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs on News Talk KVNU.
The United States Deputy Sheriff's Association is a national nonprofit and the largest non-governmental provider of services to law enforcement. The USDSA assists city, county, state, and federal agencies with free safety equipment donations and officer survival training, along with cash donations to families of law enforcement officers who perish in the line of duty, college scholarships for the children of law enforcement, a citizen awareness program, and more. For more information on the USDSA and how you can help, visit usdeputy.org.
Back to KVNU's For the People. This is an interesting development midway through our hour with Cache County Republican Party, former Cache County Republican Party Chair Shellie Giddings, our guest here in the studio. And as we've been discussing just the races coming up in 2024 in Utah, the challenges for parties trying to court younger voters while at the same time not alienate their base right now, which here in Utah at least is still an older crowd. And so it's been a challenge for major parties. In the midst of all this, Bill caught this, an ABC breaking news update, that the Colorado Supreme Court hearing recently a challenge based on a Civil War era constitutional provision known as the Insurrection Clause, which basically says, it says a lot of things, but it basically says if you've ever been a part of an insurrection against the United States, you cannot run for office. And a group actually launched a challenge based on that in Colorado. They actually 2 states, but in Colorado here the first to rule. Their Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump cannot appear on the Colorado State 2024 ballot. This is interesting, and this will obviously be challenged, but it was a 4-3 decision, or 4-3 opinion from the Colorado Supreme Court. The majority opinion reads, we conclude that because President Trump is disqualified from holding the office of president under Section 3, the 14th Amendment, it would be wrongful act under the election code of the Secretary of Colorado, to list President Trump as a candidate on the presidential primary ballot. And the majority opinion continued, therefore, the Secretary may not list President Trump's name on the 2024 presidential primary ballot, nor may she count any write-in votes cast for him. So basically, the Supreme Court saying, based on the state statute, in contrast with the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, saying that Trump's role in January 6th basically bars him from the ballot. That's interesting. And of course, doesn't mean that, a route through the Electoral College is no longer possible for President Trump, but that does complicate things a bit. There is a dissenting opinion in this, and the dissenting opinion could be summed up basically those 3 who voted against this ruling today on the Colorado State Supreme Court. The dissenting opinion it could be summed up as them saying, we don't think that it is the state Supreme Court's role to determine whether an individual was part of an insurrection. So they're basically saying, look, until this trial in D.C. plays out, and until there is a conviction of insurrection in a court of law, the dissenting opinion was that the state Supreme Court of Colorado should not make that determination. 4 judges disagreed, and they were the majority. Interesting.
Wow.
I did not expect that ruling. I sort of thought the Supreme Court would say, look, he hasn't been convicted of this in a court yet, so we can't. But they're saying they can determine it enough, I guess.
I think it's interesting, though. They also said that they stayed the ruling until January 4th to allow him time to appeal.
Which implies that they feel there is a credible appeal somewhere to be had. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Courts are weird. People forget this about courts because you see a decision from the Supreme Court, a state Supreme Court, circuit courts, federal courts, all that, and people forget that oftentimes the courts are where there's this process that has to play out. So you see this, the Fifth Circuit rules this way, and everybody who supports that is like, oh, yeah, we won. Well, actually, no, that's just step one.
Yeah, right.
And then this other step has to happen, and the courts know that. And so sometimes I wonder if courts rule a certain way so that when it gets to the highest court, there are two rulings to compare. Mm-hmm. I've always wondered that. If you see that happen sometimes. They claim no. They claim that it's all just reading the law and being good judges. But
yes, well.
Interesting.
Huh.
Do you think I don't think there's any way Trump pulls himself off the ballot or steps away from the race, but do you think this gives any of his challengers some zest?
They'll try.
You think so?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
It's going to be interesting. Isn't politics fun?
What a weird time in America, right?
I know.
Do you ever feel like you're taking your break from party leadership at a good time? Do you ever just think,
absolutely.
I'm glad this is someone else, not me?
Absolutely.
Watching
yes.
what's happening with the county and
Well,
man.
Yeah, because the county chair and vice chair, the leadership, should be helping to vet candidates on the county level. Yeah. And it's not happening right now.
That's interesting.
So, so we've got some weird things happening.
Yeah. I mean, you can see how it becomes problematic with what's playing out with the county clerk's office right now.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we have a new position that someone will run for the first time next year, the county auditor. They've separated that from the clerk's office as an independent position now. And I don't remember how many open council seats. Maybe one if Carl Ward decides not to rerun again. But
I don't know if I've heard that Carl is not and Barbara is not going to run again. But I haven't heard it from them. I've just heard from other people.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So
hoping the county party gets on this. Filing period opens up the first week of January. So a short period of time here.
Mm-hmm.
Shellie, thank you. Always great to get your insight and another perspective on all of this. And we'll do it again in January.
Sounds like fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And tell your daughter she's a great singer.
I will.
We'll be back with hour 2 of today's show and the County Hour. Cache County Executive David Zook joining us in the studio here in just a few minutes, right after this on KVNU Logan.